Kane Williamson woke up on his wedding anniversary to find his wife's side of the bed hadn't been slept in, and a single photograph on her pillow, their wedding day with her face burned out, not cut away, not scratched off, burned. The edges of the hole were black and crispy, like someone had held a lighter to the photograph, until Cherie's face was nothing but a dark void in the shape of a woman. Kane could still see himself in his tuxedo, smiling at the empty space where his bride should have been. His hand trembled as he picked up the photograph. The paper was still slightly warm. "Cherie?" His voice cracked in the silence of their bedroom. The house felt wrong, too quiet, too still, like the air itself was holding its breath. He threw off the covers and searched the house. Her car sat in the driveway, keys on the hook by the door. Her purse rested on the kitchen counter, wallet inside, credit cards untouched. Her phone lay on the dining room table, screen dark and dead. Her coat hung in the closet. Her shoes lined the entryway. Everything that should have been gone was still here, everything except Cherie. Kane called her number anyway. The automated voice informed him the number was no longer in service. His chest tightened. He checked her laptop. Password changed. Her email, access denied. Her social media accounts, all deleted. Profiles vanished as if they'd never existed. 23 years of marriage, gone overnight. He called the police. 2 officers arrived within the hour. Officer Mitchell, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes, took notes while her partner walked through the house. Kane explained everything in a rush of words that tumbled over each other. Anniversary morning, burned photograph, all her things here but she's gone. No note, no warning, no fight. "Any arguments recently?" Officer Mitchell asked. "No, everything was normal. We had dinner last night. She seemed fine. She went to bed before me. I stayed up watching television. When I came to bed, she was already asleep." Kane paused. "At least, I thought she was asleep. Any reason she might want to leave?" "None. I mean, we've had our rough patches over the years, but nothing serious. Nothing that would make her disappear like this." Officer Mitchell's pen paused on her notepad. "Mr. Williamson, I need to ask you some basic questions about your wife, for the missing person report." "Of course. Anything." "What's her full maiden name?" Kane opened his mouth, closed it. His mind went blank. "It's Cherie." He searched his memory desperately. They'd been married for over 2 decades. How could he not know this? I'm sorry. It's just slipped my mind. The stress, it's all right. Take your time." Officer Mitchell's voice was gentle, but something shifted in her expression. "What about her parents' names?" "She doesn't talk to her parents. They've been estranged since before we met." "But you know their names?" Kane felt heat rise in his face. "She never wanted to discuss them. I didn't want to push." "Siblings?" "I don't think so. She never mentioned any." "Where did she grow up?" The silence stretched too long. Kane stared at the officer, horror dawning slowly. "I don't know." "Where did she go to high school?" "I don't know." "College?" "I don't know." Officer Mitchell set down her pen. Her partner had stopped walking through the house and now stood in the doorway, listening. The look they exchanged made Kane's stomach drop. "Mr. Williamson," Officer Mitchell said carefully, "do you have any photographs of your wife from before you met her? School pictures, family photos, anything from her childhood or young adult years?" Kane thought about their photo albums, the boxes in the attic, the frames throughout the house. Every photograph was from after they met. Cherie at their wedding, Cherie on vacations, Cherie at holiday dinners. But before that, nothing. He'd never thought to question it. "She said her family destroyed all her photos when they disowned her," Kane whispered. "Why did they disown her?" "She wouldn't say. It was too painful." Officer Mitchell picked up her pen again. "I need names of her friends, people we can contact who might know where she is." Kane rattled off names. Linda from her book club, Margaret from the gym, Diane from the volunteer organization. The officers made calls right there in his living room, and Kane listened as each conversation went the same way. "I'm calling about Cherie Williamson. She's been reported missing." When did you last see her? Do you know any family members we could contact? Every response was a variation of the same theme. Cherie was lovely but private, friendly but distant. No one knew her family. No one knew where she grew up. No one had her emergency contact information beyond Kane himself. She was always kind of mysterious, Linda said over speakerphone, but in a charming way, like she was someone important who'd left that life behind, you know? We never pushed because she seemed happy keeping her past private. After the fifth call, Officer Mitchell's partner spoke up. Mr. Williamson, I'm going to be straight with you. This doesn't feel like a standard missing person case. This feels like someone who planned to disappear. That's insane. Why would Cherie plan to leave? We're happy. Today's our anniversary. Maybe that's exactly why, Officer Mitchell said quietly. Some people leave on significant dates, anniversaries, birthdays, holidays, dates that matter. You don't know my wife. With respect, sir, I'm not sure you do either. The words hit Kane like a physical blow. He wanted to argue, to defend his marriage, to prove them wrong, but he couldn't, because standing in his living room surrounded by 2 decades of shared life, Kane realized he couldn't answer the most basic questions about the woman he'd promised to love forever. Officer Mitchell handed him a card. We'll file the report and start looking, but Mr. Williamson, I'm going to recommend you request a detective be assigned to this case, because something about your wife's disappearance doesn't add up, and I think you need someone who can dig deeper than a standard missing person search. After the officers left, Kane stood alone in the house that suddenly felt like a museum of a life he'd never really understood. He walked through each room, seeing everything with new eyes, the absence of family photos, the way Cherie deflected personal questions, the gaps in her stories that he'd never noticed because he'd been too in love to look closely. He returned to the bedroom and picked up the burned photograph again. This time, he noticed something he'd missed before. On the back, in Cherie's handwriting, was a single sentence. Thank you for 23 years of safety. I'm sorry it had to end this way. Safety, not love, not happiness, safety. What had his wife been running from? And why, after over 2 decades, was she running again? Chapter 2. The Marriage That Was a Performance. The detective assigned to Cherie's case found something in the first hour that Kane hadn't noticed in 23 years. His wife didn't exist before she met him. Detective Raina Torres arrived at Kane's house the next morning. She was younger than Kane expected, maybe late 30s, with sharp eyes that seemed to catalogue everything in a single glance. She declined his offer of coffee and got straight to work. I've been reviewing your wife's records, Torres said, opening a laptop on the dining room table. And I need you to look at something. Kane sat across from her, exhaustion pulling at his bones. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that burned photograph. Torres turned the laptop screen toward him. Your wife's social security number was issued 24 years ago. Her birth certificate was filed with the county clerk 24 years ago. Her driver's license was first issued 24 years ago. She paused. Mr. Williamson, according to every government database I can access, your wife didn't exist until 1 year before you met her. That's impossible. I agree, which means someone created an identity for her, a very thorough identity, but a manufactured one nonetheless. Kane stared at the screen, at the dates that should have been impossible. People can't just create identities out of nothing. They can if they know what they're doing, or if they have help. Torres pulled up another document. I also can't find any employment records for your wife before she met you. No tax returns. No rental history, no credit cards. It's like she appeared fully formed at age 25 with a social security number, a birth certificate, and nothing else. She worked at a library when we met. I remember. I used to visit her there. The library has no record of her employment. The room tilted slightly. Kane gripped the edge of the table. You're saying my entire marriage was based on a lie? I'm saying your wife was using a manufactured identity, and I need to find out why. Torres closed the laptop. Mr. Williamson, I need you to think very carefully. In all your years together, did Sherry ever mention anything about her past? Any detail, no matter how small? Kane forced himself to think past the panic. She said she grew up in the Midwest, that her childhood was difficult, that she left home as soon as she could and never looked back. Did she say which state? No. I assumed she meant somewhere like Iowa or Nebraska, but she never specified. Any mention of schools she attended? Jobs she held? Places she lived? Kane shook his head miserably. Torres pulled out a notepad. Tell me how you met her. At a bookstore. I was looking for a gift for my mother's birthday. Cherie was browsing the same aisle. We started talking about books. She recommended something. I asked if she wanted to get coffee. She said yes. The memory felt tainted now. It felt natural, easy, like we were meant to meet. And after that, we started dating. She was different from anyone I'd ever met. Quiet but warm. She listened more than she talked. She made me feel like I was the most interesting person in the world. Kane's voice broke. I fell in love with her in about 3 weeks. How long until you got engaged? 6 months. I know it seems fast, but it felt right. She felt right. Torres wrote something in her notepad. Did she have friends when you met her? A job? An apartment? She was living in a small studio, working part-time at that library I mentioned. She didn't talk much about friends, said she was new to the area and still getting settled. Did you ever visit her studio apartment? Kane thought back. Once, right before we got engaged. She said the lease was ending and she didn't want to renew, so she moved in with me instead. He looked up at Torres. You think that was planned too? I think your wife was very careful about what she showed you and when she showed it. Torres stood and walked to the window. Mr. Williamson, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. In 23 years of marriage, did your wife ever do anything that seemed strange or unexplained, anything that didn't quite add up? Kane wanted to say no, wanted to defend Cherie, but now that he was looking for cracks, he saw them everywhere. She never wanted to travel internationally. Said she had an issue with her passport and it was too much hassle to renew it. She didn't have any social media until a few years ago, and even then she barely used it. She never wanted me to meet her co-workers from any of her jobs, said she liked keeping work and home separate. He paused. And she always paid for everything in cash. Even when we had credit cards, she preferred cash, said she liked the tangibility of it. Cash is harder to trace, Torres said quietly. You think she was hiding from something? Or someone? Torres returned to the table and pulled up a final document. I found one more thing. A newspaper article from 25 years ago, a missing person report filed in Chicago. She turned the laptop screen again. Kane looked at the grainy photograph accompanying the article. A young woman with dark hair and light eyes stared back at him. The caption read, Cherie Zampella, 22, reported missing by family. Last seen leaving work on the evening of March 15th. It was Cherie, younger, with a slightly different hairstyle, but unmistakably his wife. Is this her? Torres asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Yes, that's Cherie. Then your wife has been missing for 25 years. The question is, where has she been? Kane couldn't stop staring at the photograph. It says her family reported her missing. We need to contact them. They might know something. I already did. Her mother, Lorraine Zampella, is still alive. She's coming here tomorrow morning. Torres closed the laptop. Mr. Williamson, I need you to prepare yourself. The woman you married may not be who you thought she was, and the reasons she disappeared now might be connected to why she disappeared 25 years ago. What could be so terrible that she'd fake her own death and create a new identity? That's what we're going to find out. After Torres left, Kane went upstairs to Cherie's closet. He'd never gone through her things before. It felt like a violation of privacy, of trust, but trust was a currency he no longer had. He pulled down boxes from the top shelf, searching for anything that might explain who his wife really was. Most of what he found was ordinary: old clothes, shoes, costume jewelry. But in the very back, behind a stack of sweaters, his hand hit something solid. A metal lockbox, small, nondescript, locked with a combination dial. Kane carried it downstairs and tried their anniversary date. The lock didn't budge. He tried her birthday, at least the birthday she'd always celebrated. Nothing. He tried every significant date he could think of, growing more frustrated with each failed attempt. Finally, in desperation, he tried the date from the newspaper article, the day Cherie Zampella went missing. The lock clicked open. Inside, Kane found his wife's real life, or at least a version of it. Multiple driver's licenses with different names, a passport that had expired years ago under the name Rachel Winters, thick stacks of cash wrapped in rubber bands, and underneath it all, a leather notebook. Kane's hands shook as he opened it. The first page was dated 24 years ago, the day Cherie's manufactured identity was created. New name, Cherie Williamson. New birth date, new social security number, new life. This time I'll be more careful. This time I'll disappear completely if I have to. The entries that followed were clinical, detached, like someone documenting an experiment. Kane read through his own courtship like it was a case study. Met KW at bookstore on 4th Street, seemed lonely. Asked about his family, no close relatives in the area. Financially stable based on his clothes and car, exactly what I need. Second encounter at coffee shop, talked for 2 hours. He laughed at my jokes, asked for my number. I gave him a burner phone. He doesn't need to know my real number yet. Fourth date, he's falling. I can see it in the way he looks at me. He's the type who wants to save broken things. I just need to seem broken enough to save, but not so broken that he asks too many questions. He proposed. 6 months, just like I planned. He cried when I said yes. I almost felt guilty. Almost. Kane dropped the notebook, bile rising in his throat. Every moment of their relationship had been calculated. Every smile, every laugh, every intimate moment had been part of a performance. But then he noticed something. The entries stopped after their wedding. The rest of the notebook was blank, except for a single entry at the very end, dated 1 week earlier. He's having an affair. I saw them together at that coffee shop on Elm Street, the same coffee shop where we had our second date. There's poetry in that, I suppose. I trained him well. How to lie, how to keep secrets, how to live a double life. It's time to go. He gave me 23 years of safety, and I'm grateful, but I can't stay anymore. Not because of her, because I'm tired of pretending to be Cherie Williamson. Kane sat on the floor of his living room, surrounded by the evidence of his wife's deception, and finally understood. Cherie had known about his affair, had known, and said nothing because it gave her the exit she needed. His phone buzzed, a text from Detective Torres. Mrs. Zampella will be here at 9 a.m. tomorrow. She says she has information about why her daughter ran away. Information you need to hear. Kane looked at the burned photograph still sitting on the coffee table, at the void where his wife's face used to be, and wondered if he was ready to learn the truth about the woman he'd never really known at all. Chapter 3. The Other Family. On day 4 of Cherie's disappearance, a woman named Lorraine Zampella called Kane's house and asked a question that shattered everything. Is my daughter alive? Lorraine arrived at 9 in the morning exactly, punctual in the way of people who'd spent decades waiting for a moment that might never come. She was in her 70s, with silver hair and the same light eyes Kane had memorized on his wife's face. She carried a battered photo album clutched against her chest like a shield. Detective Torres made introductions. Kane tried to speak, to say something appropriate, but his voice failed him. This woman had spent 25 years believing her daughter was dead, and Kane had spent 23 years sleeping next to that daughter, never knowing she existed. You must hate me, Kane finally managed. Lorraine studied him with those familiar eyes. Why would I hate you? You didn't take her from me. She left on her own. They sat in the living room, Kane and Torres on the couch, Lorraine in the armchair Cherie used to curl up in while reading. The older woman's hands trembled as she opened the photo album. "This is who my daughter was before she became your wife." The photographs told a story of a girl Kane had never met. Cherie at 5, missing her front teeth, hugging a golden retriever. Cherie at 12, awkward in braces and 2 big glasses. Cherie at 16, beautiful and uncomfortable with it, slouching in her prom dress. Cherie at 20, graduated from college, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "She was my baby," Lorraine whispered. "My only daughter after I lost 2 pregnancies. I thought she'd be my whole world forever." "What happened?" Torres asked gently. Lorraine closed the album. "A man named David Cross happened." The name meant nothing to Kane. He glanced at Torres, who was already taking notes. Cherie met David when she was 21. He was older, 35, successful. He worked in finance, drove an expensive car, wore expensive suits. He swept her off her feet. Lorraine's voice hardened. "We didn't like him from the start. Her father and I. There was something wrong about him. The way he looked at Cherie like she was a possession he'd acquired. The way he called her constantly, always needing to know where she was, who she was with. He was controlling," Torres said. "He was obsessed. Within 3 months, he'd convinced Cherie to move in with him. Within 6 months, they were engaged. We tried to talk to her, but she couldn't see what we saw. Or maybe she did see it and thought she could change him." Kane thought about his own whirlwind courtship with Cherie. 6 months from meeting to engagement. Had she been repeating a pattern or breaking one? "What happened after the engagement?" Torres prompted. Lorraine's hands tightened on the album. "He got worse. Started making comments about what she wore, who she talked to, suggested she quit her job because he made enough money for both of them. She agreed because she thought it would make him happy." Lorraine looked up, her eyes wet. By the time she realized he'd isolated her from everyone she knew, it was too late. "Did he hurt her?" Kane asked, though he already knew the answer. "Not at first, not physically, but he destroyed her confidence, her independence, her sense of self, made her believe she was nothing without him, that no one else would ever want her." Lorraine wiped her eyes. "Then one night she came home with a bruise on her wrist, said she'd bumped into a door. But I knew. A mother knows." The room was silent except for the ticking of the clock on the mantel. "I begged her to leave him," Lorraine continued. "Told her we'd help her, protect her. She said she would. Made plans to pack her things while he was at work. But David found out somehow. Came home early. There was a fight." Lorraine's voice broke. "She called me from the emergency room. Had a broken arm and 3 cracked ribs. Told me David said if she ever tried to leave again, he'd kill her. And she believed him." "Did she report it to the police?" Torres asked. "She was too scared. David had connections, money. He'd already threatened her family. Said if she went to the police, we'd all pay for it." Lorraine looked directly at Kane. "My daughter lived in terror for 8 months. Then one day she disappeared. No note, no goodbye, she just vanished." "You thought he killed her," Kane said quietly. "We all did. The police investigated David, but they couldn't find any evidence. No body, no witnesses, nothing. After 2 years, they stopped looking. After 5 years, we held a memorial service. After 10 years, I accepted that my daughter was gone forever." "But she wasn't dead," Torres said. "She was hiding." "From David," Lorraine confirmed. "I'm sure of it. She must have planned her escape carefully, made herself disappear so completely that he couldn't find her." Kane thought about the lockbox, the fake IDs, the cash, the notebook documenting manufactured identities. Did Cherie ever mention someone who might have helped her disappear, someone who could create a new identity? Lorraine frowned. "Not that I remember, but there was someone she was close to before David. Her brother." "She has a brother." Kane's voice rose. Another massive detail his wife had never shared. Had a brother. Anthony. He was 2 years older. They were inseparable growing up. Lorraine opened the album again, flipping to a photograph of Sherry and a young man with the same dark hair and light eyes. After Sherry disappeared, Anthony became obsessed with finding her. He was convinced David had killed her and hidden the body, spent every penny he had hiring investigators, following leads. "Did he find anything?" Torres asked. "He found David, confronted him at his office. There was an altercation. Security threw Anthony out." Lorraine's voice went flat. 3 days later, Anthony was driving home from work. His car went off a bridge. The police said he lost control, but Anthony was a careful driver. He'd never had an accident in his life. Kane felt ice in his veins. "You think David killed him?" "I think my son got too close to something David didn't want found. And I think David made it look like an accident." Torres leaned forward. "Mrs. Zampella, did the police investigate your son's death as suspicious?" "They looked into it, but there was no evidence of foul play. The road was wet, it was late at night. Anthony had been drinking according to the toxicology report. They ruled it an accident." Lorraine's face hardened. "But Anthony didn't drink, not anymore. He'd been sober for 3 years. There's no way he was drunk that night." "Someone could have drugged him," Torres said, writing rapidly. "That's what I told the police. They said I was a grieving mother seeing conspiracies where there were none." Kane stood and walked to the window, unable to sit still any longer. "Did your husband think it was murder too?" "My husband died 6 months after Anthony, heart attack. The doctor said it was stress, but I know better. He died of a broken heart. Lost his daughter, then his son, then his will to live." Lorraine stood slowly, clutching her photo album. "I'm the only one left. I've spent 25 years alone, wondering if my daughter was dead or alive. And now I find out she was alive this whole time, that she got married, built a life, but never once called to tell me she was safe." The pain in Lorraine's voice was unbearable. Kane turned from the window. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. She never told me about you." "Because she thought she was protecting me," Lorraine said. "If David was looking for her, any contact with her family would put us in danger. So she stayed away, stayed silent. Let me believe she was dead." "Do you think David is still looking for her?" Torres asked. "I think men like David Cross never stop looking. They can't stand losing control of something they consider theirs." Lorraine moved toward the door. "If Sherry disappeared again after all these years, there's only one reason I can think of. David found her." After Lorraine left, Kane and Torres sat in silence. The photo album remained on the coffee table, a ghost of a girl who'd become a ghost of a woman. "We need to talk to David Cross," Torres said finally. "He'll just deny everything." "Maybe, but I want to see his face when I tell him Sherry Zampella is missing again. I want to watch his reaction." Torres stood and gathered her things. At the door, she paused. "Mr. Williamson, there's something you need to understand. If Lorraine is right, if David Cross has been looking for your wife all these years, then Sherry's disappearance might not be her choice. You think he took her? I think we need to consider every possibility, including the one where your wife didn't leave you voluntarily." After Torres drove away, Kane returned to the photo album. He studied the images of young Sherry, trying to reconcile this smiling girl with the woman who'd engineered her own disappearance, created a fake identity, and manipulated her way into marriage with him. But there was one photograph that stopped him cold. Sherry at 22, just weeks before she disappeared according to the date written on the back. She stood in a park somewhere, squinting against the sun, and she wasn't smiling. She looked tired, afraid, trapped. She looked exactly the way she'd looked 1 week ago when Kane came home and found her staring out the kitchen window, lost in thought. He'd asked if she was okay. She'd smiled and said she was fine, just thinking about old memories. Had she known then that she was about to run again? Had she been saying goodbye in that moment without him realizing it? Kane's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stop looking for her. She doesn't want to be found." Kane's blood ran cold. He called Torres immediately. "Someone just texted me, told me to stop looking for Sherry." "What number?" Kane read it off. "Should I respond?" "No. Don't engage. I'm tracing it now. Kane stared at the message. The words were simple, but the implication was clear. Someone was watching him. Someone knew he was searching for his wife, and that someone didn't want Cherie to be found. Chapter 4. The man she was running from. David Cross opened his door to Detective Torres and said something that made her blood run cold. I've been waiting for this conversation for 25 years. Torres had driven to David's address in an upscale suburb, Kane following in his own car despite her suggestion that he stay home. David Cross lived in a modern house with clean lines and expensive landscaping, the kind of place designed to impress rather than comfort. Everything about it screamed control. David himself was 59 now, but he'd maintained his appearance carefully. Silver hair styled perfectly, expensive watch, tailored clothes even on a weekday morning. He smiled when he opened the door, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Detective Torres, I presume. David's gaze slid past her to Kane. And you must be the current husband. Please, come in. They followed him into a living room that looked like a furniture showroom. Everything matched. Nothing was out of place. Torres noted the absence of photographs, personal items, anything that suggested someone actually lived here. Can I get you coffee? Water? David asked. No, thank you, Torres said. We're here to ask you about Cherie Zampella. David settled into an armchair, crossing his legs casually. I figured that's why you'd come. I saw the missing person report on the news. Cherie Williamson. It took me about 30 seconds to recognize her face. You've been looking for her, Torres said. Not a question. I stopped looking years ago, Detective, but I never stopped hoping I'd see her again. David's gaze fixed on Kane. Congratulations on 23 years of marriage, by the way. That's quite an accomplishment with a woman like Cherie. Kane's hands clenched into fists. What's that supposed to mean? It means Cherie is exceptional at being whoever she needs to be. Tell me, did she ever mention me? Or did she erase that part of her history entirely? She never mentioned you, Kane said through gritted teeth. Of course she didn't. That's Cherie's gift, complete reinvention. She probably told you some story about a difficult childhood, estranged family, painful past she didn't want to discuss, and you believed her because she's very, very good at making men believe her. Torres cut in before Kane could respond. Mr. Cross, I need you to tell me about your relationship with Cherie Zampella. David leaned back, perfectly comfortable. We were engaged. She was 21, I was 35. Young, beautiful, smart. I fell hard. Proposed within 6 months. We were planning a wedding when she disappeared. You're leaving out some important details, Torres said. The hospital visits, the police reports. Ah, so you've spoken to Lorraine. David's smile faded slightly. Let me guess. She told you I was abusive, controlling, that Cherie was terrified of me, that I'm the reason she ran away. Is it true? Is that what Cherie told her family? Then I'm sure that's what they believe. Cherie was always good at playing the victim. Kane stood abruptly. You're saying she lied? About the broken arm? The cracked ribs? I'm saying I was never charged with anything. No arrests, no convictions. Just a lot of accusations from a woman who wanted out of our relationship and needed a reason that made her look sympathetic. Torres remained calm. So you're denying you ever hurt her? I'm saying our relationship was complicated. We fought. Sometimes those fights got heated, but Cherie gave as good as she got. Broken bones aren't getting heated, Mr. Cross. David stood and walked to the window, his back to them. You want to know what really happened? I'll tell you. Cherie was a master manipulator. She came from nothing, working a dead-end job, living in a terrible apartment. I offered her a better life. Money, security, a beautiful home. She accepted eagerly, moved in with me, quit her job, let me take care of her. Isolated her, Torres said. Gave her everything she wanted, David corrected. But it wasn't enough. She started talking about wanting her own money, her own career, her own friends. I thought we were building a life together, but Cherie was building an exit strategy. When I confronted her about it, she staged that emergency room visit. Made it look like I'd beaten her. Hospital records don't lie, Torres said. Hospital records show injuries. They don't show how those injuries happened. David turned back to face them. Did she tell you about the man she was sleeping with while we were engaged? No, of course not. That detail wouldn't fit her narrative. Kane felt sick. You're lying. Am I? Ask yourself this, Mr. Williamson. In 23 years of marriage, how much did you really know about your wife? Did you ever meet her family, her childhood friends, see photographs from her past? Or did she keep all of that locked away, feeding you just enough information to keep you satisfied, but never enough to let you really know her? The words hit too close to home. Kane wanted to defend Cherie, but every accusation David made echoed the questions that had been haunting him for days. Torres pulled out her phone. Anthony Zampella, Cherie's brother. You confronted him 3 days before he died in a car accident. He confronted me, David corrected. Showed up at my office making wild accusations. Said I'd murdered his sister. Security removed him. I never saw him again. Until 3 days later, when he ended up at the bottom of a ravine with alcohol in his system. David's expression didn't change. Are you suggesting I had something to do with that? Did you? Anthony Zampella was drunk and drove off a bridge. It was a tragedy, but it had nothing to do with me. He'd been sober for 3 years. Grief makes people do things out of character. Maybe losing his sister drove him to drink again. Torres stepped closer to David. Here's what I think happened. I think Cherie escaped from you 25 years ago because you were exactly as abusive as her family claims. I think she created a new identity and disappeared so completely that even you couldn't find her. And I think when her brother got too close to uncovering what really happened, you killed him and made it look like an accident. David smiled. It was a cold, terrible expression. That's a creative theory, detective. But theory isn't evidence. I was never charged with Anthony's death because I had nothing to do with it. And I was never charged with abusing Cherie because I never abused her. She ran away because that's what she does. She uses people until she's gotten what she needs, then she disappears. What did she need from you? Kane asked, unable to stay silent. Protection, money, a new identity. David paused. You see, the disappearance wasn't just Cherie's idea. We planned it together. The room went silent. Torres recovered first. Explain that. Cherie wanted to disappear. Said she was tired of her family's expectations, tired of being Cherie Zampella. She wanted to start over, become someone new. I had the connections to make that happen. Fake identity, new documents, everything she needed. David sat back down. We were supposed to do it together, create new identities and leave everything behind. But when the time came, Cherie vanished alone. Took the identity I'd paid for and left me behind. You're saying you helped her fake her death, Torres said slowly. I'm saying we planned a mutual disappearance. She betrayed me by going through with it solo. That's not what her family says. Her family believed what Cherie wanted them to believe, that I was a monster she had to escape. In reality, I was a fool in love with a woman who was already planning to become someone else. Kane's mind reeled. Nothing made sense anymore. Was David lying to cover his abuse? Or had Cherie been lying to everyone, including her family, to execute an escape she'd been planning all along? If you helped her disappear, Torres said, then you know what name she's using, what identity she created. I don't, actually. That was part of her betrayal. She took the documents I'd prepared but created something entirely different, probably used a different contact, made sure I couldn't find her even if I wanted to. But you did look for her. Of course I did. I spent 5 years searching, hired investigators, followed every lead, never found a trace. Cherie is better at disappearing than anyone I've ever met. Torres pulled out a photograph, the one from Kane's wedding album. This is Cherie now, or rather this was Cherie a week ago before she disappeared again. Do you recognize her? David took the photograph. His expression shifted, something unreadable flickering across his face. She's older. But yes, that's Sherry. She looks happy in this photo. She was happy, Kane said quietly. Or I thought she was. David handed back the photograph. Here's what you need to understand about Sherry Zampella, Mr. Williamson. She's a survivor. Whatever terrible thing she's running from, whether it's me, her past, or something else entirely, she'll do whatever it takes to escape it, including using you, lying to you, and leaving you without a second thought. She left a note, Kane said. She thanked me for 23 years of safety. Safety, David repeated. Not love, not happiness, safety. That's all any of us ever were to her. Safe harbors in whatever storm she's running from. Torres stood. Mr. Cross, I'm going to need you to provide documentation of your whereabouts for the past 2 weeks. Am I a suspect in Sherry's disappearance? You're a person of interest in an ongoing investigation. David smiled again. I'll have my attorney send over my calendar, but detective, I haven't seen Sherry Zampella in 25 years. I didn't know where she was. I didn't know she'd remarried. I certainly didn't make her disappear again. Then you won't mind if we verify that. Outside, Kane leaned against his car, breathing hard. Torres joined him, her expression grim. He's lying, Kane said. Has to be. About which part? That's the problem. Some of what he said rings true. The manufactured identity, the careful planning, the way Sherry kept everyone at arm's length. But the abuse allegations are serious, and I don't think Lorraine was lying about Anthony's death. So what do we believe? We keep investigating, follow the evidence, not the emotions. Torres checked her phone. I traced that text you received. Came from a burner phone, already disconnected. But I got the location it was sent from. Want to take a guess? Where? 3 blocks from David Cross's house. Sent about an hour before we arrived here. Kane's stomach dropped. So he was the one who texted me. He knew we were coming. Or someone working for him knew. Either way, David Cross is more involved in your wife's disappearance than he's admitting. Torres opened her car door. I'm pulling his phone records, his financial statements, everything. If he's lying, I'll find proof. And if he's not lying, if Sherry really did manipulate everyone, including her own family. Torres paused. Then we're looking for a woman who's very good at becoming someone new, and she could be anyone, anywhere by now. Kane watched Torres drive away, then looked back at David's perfect house. Through the window, he could see David standing motionless, staring out at him. Even from this distance, Kane could see the smile on David's face. Chapter 5. The file. Kane found the file in the back of Sherry's closet, inside a locked box he never knew existed, and inside was evidence of a woman he'd never met. 3 days of police investigation had yielded nothing new. Detective Torres was hitting dead ends at every turn. David Cross's alibi was airtight. He'd been out of state on business when Sherry disappeared. His phone records showed no contact with Sherry in 25 years. His financial records revealed nothing suspicious. Kane had stopped sleeping, stopped eating properly. He spent his nights searching the house for clues, and his days replaying every conversation he'd ever had with Sherry, looking for signs he'd missed. It was past midnight when he went through Sherry's closet again. He'd already searched it twice, but desperation made him more thorough. He pulled everything off the shelves, knocked on the walls, checking for hidden compartments, examined the floor for loose boards. That's when he noticed the small safe built into the wall at the very back of the closet, hidden behind a false panel that had been painted to match the surrounding wall. It was the kind of safe that required a key, not a combination. Kane tore through the bedroom looking for that key. Nothing in her jewelry box, nothing in her nightstand, nothing in her desk. Then he remembered the lockbox he'd already found, the one with the fake IDs and cash. He dumped its contents onto the bed and searched through every pocket, every fold of paper. There, taped to the inside lid where he'd missed it before, was a small key. The safe opened with a soft click. Inside was a life Kane had never known existed. 3 driver's licenses, each with Sherry's photograph but different names. Rachel Winters from Oregon, Nicole Hartley from Texas, Sherry Zampella from Illinois. The Nicole Hartley license was 20 years old, the Rachel Winters license was 15 years old, the Cherie Zampella license was the oldest, issued before she'd supposedly disappeared. Beneath the licenses was $50,000 in cash, bound in neat stacks of hundreds. Beneath the cash was a passport for Nicole Hartley, stamped with entries from Canada, Mexico, and several European countries. All the trips dated from 15 to 18 years ago. But it was the notebook that made Kane's hands shake. Unlike the first notebook he'd found, the one documenting his own courtship, this one went back further, much further. The first entry was dated over 20 years ago, written in Cherie's handwriting, but signed Rachel. Michael proposed today. It took longer than I expected, almost a year, but he finally did it. He's exactly what I need, stable, kind, wealthy enough to be comfortable, but not so wealthy that he'll fight hard in a divorce. I'll give him 5 years, maybe 7, however long it takes for the heat to die down back home. Kane's vision blurred. He flipped forward. Entry after entry documented a relationship with Michael Chen, their wedding, their early married years, her growing frustration with the performance of being his wife. And then, 5 years in, I found evidence of Michael's affair today. Photos on his phone he thought he'd deleted. Part of me feels vindicated. I knew he would cheat eventually. They all do. But mostly, I feel relieved. I can leave now without guilt. He gave me exactly what I needed, time and security. Now, I can disappear again. The next entries were about the disappearance. How she'd carefully withdrawn money over months. How she'd contacted someone who could create a new identity. How she'd staged her exit to look sudden and emotional, making Michael think he'd driven her away with his infidelity. Michael will tell people I left because of the affair. He'll blame himself. He'll never suspect that I was planning to leave anyway, that the affair was just the excuse I'd been waiting for. Kane felt sick. He kept reading. The entries jumped forward several years. A new name, Nicole Hartley. A new man, James Rodriguez. Met JR at a conference in Austin. He's lonely, recently divorced, desperate for connection. Exactly my type. Within 6 months, I'll be Nicole Rodriguez, and James will think marrying me was the best decision he ever made. More entries about building trust, about learning James's vulnerabilities and exploiting them, about becoming the perfect wife for a man who didn't realize he was being studied like a specimen. 7 years this time. I'm getting better at the performance. Or maybe James is just easier to fool. Either way, I've saved enough money, created enough emergency exit plans. When the time comes, I'll be ready. And then, inevitably, found evidence of James's affair, right on schedule. Men are so predictable. Give them a perfect wife, and they'll still look elsewhere because they don't actually want perfect. They want new. I'll use this. Plan my exit. Disappear the same way I always do. The final entries about James were clinical, cold, describing her disappearance with the same emotional investment someone might use to describe changing clothes. Then came the entries about becoming Sherry Williamson. New city, new identity. This time I'll be more careful. No paper trail, no social media, no connections to my past lives. I'll find someone stable and quiet, someone who won't ask too many questions, someone content with surface-level intimacy. Kane's breath came in short gasps. He forced himself to keep reading. Met KW today. Perfect target. Mid-30s, never married, works a steady job in accounting. Parents deceased, no siblings, few close friends. He's exactly the kind of lonely that makes men overlook red flags. I'll be engaged to him within 6 months. The entries that followed documented their courtship with the same detached precision. Kane saw his entire relationship reduced to manipulation tactics and calculated moves. But then something changed. Around the 2-year mark of their marriage, Sherry's tone shifted. The entries became less frequent, more conflicted. KW is different than the others. He doesn't push for information about my past, doesn't try to control me, doesn't even seem to need much from me beyond companionship. Sometimes I think he's the first person who ever wanted me for who I am rather than who he wanted me to be. Then I remember he doesn't know who I am at all. 5 years in. I thought about telling him today, about David, about the others, about who I really am. But what would I even say? How do you explain that your entire identity is manufactured? That your name isn't your name, your past isn't your past, your love might not even be real love because you've been performing for so long, you've forgotten what real feels like. 10 years in, I've stayed longer than I ever planned, longer than I stayed with Michael or James. KW doesn't cheat, doesn't lie, doesn't give me a reason to leave. I keep waiting for him to show his true colors, to prove he's like all the others, but he just keeps being kind. It's exhausting, being loved by someone who doesn't know you're a ghost. 15 years in. I think I might actually love him, or I love who I am when I'm with him, or I love the safety of this life. I can't tell the difference anymore. 20 years in. I'm too old to disappear again, too tired. Maybe I can stay. Maybe Sherry Williamson can be real. Maybe I can let go of Rachel and Nicole and the girl I was before I learned to become other people. The entries stopped there. No writing for almost 3 years. Then, 1 week ago, a final entry. They found me. After all these years, they found me. I saw the car outside the house yesterday. Black sedan, tinted windows, license plate registered to a shell company in Chicago. The Moretti family hasn't forgotten. They waited 25 years and now they're here. I have to run. I have to disappear. But this time it hurts. This time I'm leaving behind someone I actually care about. KW deserves better than this. He deserves better than me. I hope he finds someone real, someone whole, someone who doesn't have to check over her shoulder every time she hears a car engine. Kane dropped the notebook. His whole body was shaking. The Moretti family, Chicago, 25 years. He grabbed his phone and called Torres. She answered on the second ring, her voice rough with sleep. Mr. Williamson, it's 3 a.m. The Moretti family, Chicago. I found another notebook. Torres. I think someone's been looking for Cherie. I think that's why she ran. Silence on the other end. Then, I'm coming over. Don't touch anything else. Torres arrived within 30 minutes. Kane showed her the safe, the licenses, the money, the notebook. She photographed everything, her expression growing grimmer with each page. The Moretti family, Torres said finally. I know that name, organized crime out of Chicago, but their peak was 30 years ago. They've been mostly quiet since the 90s. What if Cherie did something to them, something that made them want revenge? Torres pulled out her phone and started searching databases. After several minutes, she looked up. There was a trial in Chicago. About 30 years ago, a man named Marcus Zampella was convicted of murdering Vincent Moretti. Zampella. That's Sherry's last name. Marcus Zampella was Sherry's father. Torres kept reading. The testimony that convicted him came from his daughter. 16-year-old Sherry Zampella testified that she witnessed her father shoot Vincent Moretti in their home. Kane felt cold. She testified against her own father. She put him in prison for life, and according to this, Vincent Moretti had 3 sons and a brother in the family business. After Marcus was convicted, there were threats made against the Zampella family. Sherry's mother and brother went into witness protection. Torres looked up, but there's no record of Sherry entering the program. She ran instead, created her own protection by becoming someone else. And she's been running ever since. Torres scrolled through more records. Vincent Moretti's youngest son, Gabriel, was sentenced to 15 years for racketeering and assault in a separate case. He was released from prison 2 weeks ago. The timeline clicked into place. Gabriel gets out of prison, starts looking for the witness who put his father away, finds Sherry Williamson, and Sherry runs again. We need to find Gabriel Moretti, Kane said. I'm already on it. But Kane, if your wife has been hiding from the mob for 25 years and they've finally found her, we might not be looking for a missing person anymore. Torres's expression was gentle. We might be looking for a victim. After Torres left to follow up on Gabriel Moretti, Kane sat alone with the notebooks, the licenses, the evidence of his wife's many lives. He thought about the woman he'd married, about Rachel who'd married Michael, Nicole who'd married James, Cherie who'd married him. Were any of them real? Or had the real woman been buried so deep under layers of false identities that even she couldn't find herself anymore? Kane's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She was never yours. She was never anyone's. Stop looking before you end up like her brother. Kane stared at the threat, cold fury replacing his fear. Someone was warning him to back off, someone who knew what happened to Anthony Zampella. He texted back, "Who is this?" No response. But Kane didn't need a response, because he finally understood what he was dealing with. His wife hadn't disappeared because she didn't love him. She'd disappeared because someone from her past had caught up with her. Someone dangerous, someone who'd been hunting her for 25 years. And Kane had to find her before they did. Chapter 6. The affair was the exit strategy. Jada opened the door to Detective Torres and said something Kane wasn't ready to hear. "Cherie hired me." Torres had tracked Jada down through phone records and social media. Kane had insisted on coming along despite Torres's objections. Now they stood in the doorway of a small apartment in a neighborhood Kane had never visited, facing the woman he'd been sleeping with for 3 months. Jada was younger than Kane remembered, 28, with nervous eyes and her arms wrapped protectively around herself. She stepped aside to let them in without a word. The apartment was sparse. 1 bedroom, minimal furniture, everything temporary looking, like someone who'd learned not to get too comfortable anywhere. "Ms. Ellis," Torres began, "we're here about Cherie Williamson." "I figured." Jada sat on the edge of her couch, picking at her fingernails. "I saw the missing person report. I've been expecting someone to show up." "You know where she is?" Kane asked, unable to stop himself. Jada shook her head. "No, but I know why she's gone, and I know what I did to help her." Torres pulled out her recorder. "I need you to tell us everything." Jada took a shaky breath. 3 months ago, I got a message on a dating app from a woman calling herself Sarah. She said she had a business proposal that would pay $10,000 for a few months of work. I was broke, behind on rent, so I agreed to meet her. "This woman was Cherie," Torres said. "Yes. She showed up at a coffee shop, introduced herself with a different name, but when I saw her picture in the missing person report, I recognized her immediately." Jada stood and paced. "She told me she needed someone to seduce her husband, said he'd been cheating and she wanted proof for a divorce, but she needed it to be recent and undeniable." Kane felt like he'd been punched. "She asked you to seduce me. She gave me your routine, your favorite coffee shop, your schedule. She even told me what kind of woman you liked. Young, quiet, someone who seemed vulnerable and needed saving." Jada's voice cracked. "She gave me lines to use, topics to bring up. She basically wrote a script for how to make you fall for me." "Why?" Kane's voice was barely a whisper. "She said she needed proof of infidelity for the divorce, that you'd been faithful for too long and she needed an excuse to leave that wouldn't make her look bad." Jada finally met his eyes. "I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything, but I'm sorry. I needed the money, and she made it sound so simple. Flirt with you, sleep with you a few times, let her catch us together. Then I'd get paid and never see either of you again." Torres leaned forward. "Did she give you a reason why she wanted to leave?" "She said she was trapped in a marriage with a man who loved the idea of her more than who she really was. Said she'd tried to leave before but didn't have the financial resources. This time she wanted it to be clean. Proof of cheating, quick divorce. She keeps everything." "But she didn't file for divorce," Torres pointed out. "She disappeared." "I know. That's when I realized the whole thing was more complicated than she'd told me." Jada pulled out her phone and scrolled through old messages. "Here, read these." Torres took the phone. Kane looked over her shoulder. The messages between Jada and Sarah were detailed and clinical. Instructions on where to be, when to be there, what to say. It read like stage directions for a play, But the final message, sent the night before Cherie disappeared, was different. Thank you for your help. The money has been transferred to your account as promised. If anyone asks about me, tell them the truth. Tell them I hired you. Tell them I orchestrated the whole thing. They deserve to know who I really am. And Jada, I'm sorry I used you, but I needed someone he could believe in. Someone real. You gave me that, and I'm grateful. She wanted you to tell us this, Torres said slowly. She wanted Kane to know, Jada corrected, looking at him. In her final message to me, she said you deserved better than lies. That she'd been lying to you for 23 years, and she was tired of it. Kane sank into a chair. The whole affair was fake. She manufactured it to give herself an exit. Not entirely fake, Jada said quietly. I was following a script at first, but after a few weeks I wasn't pretending anymore. I actually started to care about you. That's why I feel so terrible. She hired me to seduce you, but I ended up actually falling for you. Did Cherie know that? I think so. In one of our later meetings, she asked me if I had feelings for you. I tried to deny it, but she smiled, said it was better that way, said at least one of the women in your life would actually love you. Torres set down the phone. When was your last communication with Cherie? The night before she disappeared. She sent that final message. The money appeared in my account the next morning, and I haven't heard from her since. Did she mention being afraid? Being followed? Anything that might indicate she was in danger? Jada frowned, thinking. There was one thing. During our second-to-last meeting, she kept looking over her shoulder. I asked if she was okay. She said she thought someone was watching her, that she'd seen the same car near her house multiple times. Did she describe the car? Black sedan, tinted windows. She said it didn't belong to anyone in the neighborhood. Torres and Kane exchanged glances, the same description from Cherie's notebook. Did she say anything else about who might be watching her? Torres pressed. Just that some debts never get paid, that some people never stop looking. It didn't make sense to me at the time, but now... Jada trailed off. Now you think she was running from someone, Kane finished. I think she was always running from someone. The whole time I knew her, she had this sadness about her, like she was saying goodbye to something she could never have. Jada looked at Kane. She talked about you sometimes. During our meetings, she'd ask me how you were, what you talked about during our dates. Once she asked me if I thought you'd be okay after she left. What did you tell her? I said I thought you'd be devastated. She said that was her greatest regret, that you didn't deserve what she was doing to you, but she didn't know any other way to survive. Kane stood and walked to the window. Outside, life continued normally. People going to work, walking dogs, living lives that hadn't been revealed as elaborate lies. Did she tell you about her past? Torres asked Jada. Only pieces. She said she'd been someone else before Cherie Williamson, that she'd been running since she was young, that she was tired, but didn't know how to stop. Did she mention the name Moretti? Jada's eyes widened. Once. She said if anyone named Moretti ever contacted me, I should tell them I didn't know her, that it was life or death. Torres made a note. Did anyone named Moretti contact you? No, but someone did call me 2 days ago, blocked number, man's voice, asked if I knew where Cherie Williamson was. I said I didn't know anyone by that name and hung up. Did he say anything else? Just that if I was lying, I'd regret it. Then the line went dead. Torres stood. Ms. Ellis, you may be in danger. If someone's looking for Cherie and they know about you... I'm leaving town, Jada interrupted. Already booked a ticket. I'm going to stay with my sister in Colorado until this blows over. That's smart. After leaving Jada's apartment, Kane and Torres sat in her car in silence. Finally, Kane spoke. She orchestrated my affair to give herself permission to leave, like she needed me to betray her to justify her betrayal of me. Or she needed you to believe the marriage failed because of you, not because of her, Torres said. That way you'd stop looking, accept it as a failed relationship instead of investigating it as a disappearance. But she wanted Jada to tell us the truth. She wanted me to know she manipulated everything. Maybe that was her apology, the only honest thing she could give you, the truth about her dishonesty. Kane laughed bitterly. 23 years. I thought I knew her, thought we were happy, thought our marriage was real. Parts of it probably were real. People are complicated, Kane. Your wife was running from something terrible, but that doesn't mean she didn't care about you. She hired a woman to seduce me. She also spent 23 years with you, longer than she stayed with anyone else according to those notebooks. That has to mean something. Kane wanted to believe that, wanted to think that somewhere in all the lies and manipulation there had been moments of genuine connection. But how could he trust any memory now? How could he know which smiles had been real and which had been performance? His phone buzzed. Torres's phone buzzed at the same time. They both looked at their screens. A message from an unknown number. Stop looking for Sherry Zampella. Final warning. Torres immediately tried to trace the number. It's another burner. Sent from... She paused. Sent from half a mile from here. Whoever's sending these is following us. Kane looked around the parking lot. Cars, buildings, dozens of places someone could be watching from. We need to go, Torres said, starting the engine. Now! As they pulled away, Kane looked back. There, parked across the street, was a black sedan with tinted windows. And Kane realized with sickening certainty that they weren't just looking for Cherie anymore. Someone was looking for them too. Chapter 7. The Pattern. Detective Torres found 3 other women who disappeared the same way Cherie did, and each of them had left behind a husband who thought he knew her. Torres called Kane at 7 in the morning. Her voice was tight with discovery. I found them. 3 other women. I need you to come to the station. Kane arrived within the hour. Torres had taken over a conference room, walls covered with photographs, timelines, printouts. 3 different women's faces stared at him from the evidence board, and each face was unmistakably Cherie at different ages. Her names were Rachel Winters and Nicole Hartley before she became Cherie Williamson, Torres said. But I think there might be more. These are just the ones I could confirm. Kane studied the photographs. Rachel looked young, maybe late 20s, with lighter hair. Nicole looked closer to 35, with darker hair and different makeup. But the eyes were the same, those light eyes he'd gazed into for 23 years. Tell me about them, Kane said. Torres pointed to the first photograph. Rachel Winters married Michael Chen in Oregon. The marriage lasted 5 years. One day, Rachel left a note saying she couldn't stay anymore, that Michael's affair had broken her heart. Michael told police he'd had a brief affair, felt terrible about it, and assumed his wife left because of it. He never reported her missing because the note made it seem like a choice. But it was planned, Kane said. According to Michael, Rachel had been withdrawing cash for months before she left. Small amounts, nothing that raised red flags. She'd also been distant, distracted. He thought it was because of the affair, but now I think she was preparing to disappear. Did Michael ever hear from her again? Never. No divorce papers, no contact, nothing. After 7 years, he had her declared legally dead and moved on with his life. Torres moved to the second photograph. Nicole Hartley married James Rodriguez in Texas. 7 years of marriage. Same pattern. James had an affair. Nicole found out. Nicole disappeared. Left a note. Took only personal items. Never seen again. Let me guess, Kane said. She'd been withdrawing cash, acting distant. Exactly. James said the last few months of their marriage, Nicole seemed like she was somewhere else mentally. He thought she was depressed. Now we know she was planning her exit. Kane felt sick. The pattern was undeniable. His wife, whatever her real name was, had a system. Marry men, stay for years, wait for or engineer an affair, use the infidelity as cover for a planned disappearance. Here's what bothers me, Torres said. Both Michael and James described their wives as perfect before the affairs. Loving, attentive, seemingly happy. Then almost overnight they became distant. like a switch flipped. She stopped performing, Kane said. Once she'd decided to leave, she didn't need to pretend anymore. Did Cherie seem different in the months before she disappeared? Kane thought back. A little. She seemed sad sometimes, distracted. I thought she was going through something, but when I asked, she said she was fine, because she was already gone in her mind, just waiting for the right moment to leave physically. Torres sat down at the conference table, exhaustion evident in her face. I contacted both Michael and James, asked them questions about their wives. It's eerie how similar their experiences were to yours. None of them knew their wives' families. None had photographs from before the marriage. None could answer basic questions about their wives' pasts. We all married ghosts, Kane said. You all married a woman who'd learned to become whoever men needed her to be. Michael needed someone gentle and domestic. James needed someone adventurous and independent. You needed someone calm and low maintenance. Torres paused. She became exactly what each of you wanted. Did either of them mention the name Moretti? No, and that's where it gets complicated. If your wife was hiding from the Moretti family this whole time, why marry multiple men? Why not just disappear into obscurity? Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she needed the financial security, the cover of a normal life. Or maybe she was hiding in plain sight, Torres said. Think about it. If you're running from someone, what's the last thing they'd expect? That you'd get married, settle down, live openly under a new name. Marriage creates a paper trail, sure, but it also creates legitimacy. A married woman with a home and a job looks stable, not suspicious. Kane walked to the evidence board, studying the timeline Torres had constructed. She stayed with me longer than the others. 5 years with Michael, 7 years with James, 23 years with me. Why? I've been wondering that too. Did she feel safer with you? Did you give her something the others didn't? I didn't ask questions. I didn't push. I accepted her privacy. Maybe that's exactly what she needed. Someone who wouldn't dig into her past. Kane's phone rang. Unknown number. His hand shook as he answered. Mr. Williamson? A man's voice, deep, unfamiliar. Who is this? My name is Gabriel Moretti. I believe you've been looking for me. Kane's blood went cold. He switched to speaker so Torres could hear. Where's my wife? Gabriel laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Your wife? That's rich. Do you have any idea who you married, Mr. Williamson? I know she testified against your father. I know your family wants revenge. Revenge. Such a simple word for a complicated situation. Gabriel's voice was measured, almost conversational. My father spent 25 years in prison because a 16-year-old girl decided to tell the truth. He died in that prison 5 years ago. Cancer. He never got to see freedom again. He murdered your uncle. She witnessed it. My uncle was a piece of garbage who tried to steal from my father. My father did what needed to be done. Cherie Zampella should have kept her mouth shut. Torres gestured for Kane to keep him talking. She was already tracing the call. So you've been looking for her, Kane said. For years. My brothers and I made a promise to our father. We'd find the girl who put him away and we'd make her pay. But Cherie was smarter than we expected. She disappeared completely. We looked everywhere, hired investigators, offered rewards for information. Nothing. Until 2 weeks ago. Until I got out of prison and decided to try a different approach. Instead of looking for Cherie Zampella, I looked for women who didn't exist before a certain date. Women with suspicious pasts. Women who appeared out of nowhere and married quickly. Gabriel paused. It took time, but I found a pattern. 3 women who fit the profile. Rachel Winters, Nicole Hartley, Cherie Williamson. You found all of them? I found evidence of all of them. But by the time I tracked down their locations, Rachel and Nicole were long gone. Their husbands hadn't seen them in years. But Cherie Williamson. Gabriel's voice changed, becoming harder. Cherie Williamson was still married, still living in the same house, still pretending to be someone she wasn't. You're the one who's been watching her, the black sedan. I wanted her to know I'd found her. I wanted her to be afraid, to understand that after 25 years, the debt was finally coming due. Torres wrote a note and held it up. Keep him talking. Kane forced himself to stay calm. Where is she now? I don't know. She ran before I could get to her. Smarter than I expected. She must have recognized my car, realized who I was, and disappeared again. Gabriel sighed. But here's the thing, Mr. Williamson. She can't run forever. She's older now, tired, and she's run out of identities. I know all her tricks. I know how she thinks. It's only a matter of time before I find her. And then what? You kill her? I make her pay for what she took from my father. Whether that's through death or through something else, I haven't decided yet. She was 16, a child. She was old enough to send a man to prison for life, old enough to destroy my family, old enough to pay the consequences. Torres held up her phone, showing Kane a message. Traced. Sending units now. Mr. Moretti, Kane said, if you hurt my wife... Your wife? Gabriel laughed again. You still don't get it. The woman you married doesn't exist. She's a performance, a ghost. You never knew her at all. Maybe not, but I'm going to find her before you do. Good luck, Mr. Williamson. You're looking for a woman who's been disappearing her whole life. I've been looking for 25 years, and I only just found her. What makes you think you'll be any better at it? The line went dead. Torres was already on her phone, coordinating with other officers. The call came from a hotel downtown. I've got units heading there now. He's not there anymore, Kane said. He's too smart for that. Maybe. But we'll get him. We know who he is now. We can track him. Kane stared at the evidence board, at the three women who were all the same woman. Rachel, Nicole, Cherie. And before all of them, the girl who'd witnessed a murder and spent her life running from the consequences. Torres, what was her real name before she became Rachel or Nicole or Cherie? Torres pulled up a file on her laptop. According to the original trial records, the girl who testified was Cherie Elena Zampella, daughter of Marcus and Lorraine Zampella, born in Chicago. So Cherie was her real name, at least originally. It was, but I wonder if she even remembers who that girl was. After 25 years of being other people, how much of her original self is left? Kane's phone buzzed. A text from the same unknown number Gabriel had called from. Tell Detective Torres she's wasting her time. I'm already gone. And tell your wife, if you ever find her, that I'll be waiting. Some debts take decades to collect, but they always get paid in the end. Torres read the message over Kane's shoulder. He's playing with us. No, Kane said quietly. He's telling us the truth. He's going to keep hunting her until he finds her. And when he does, she's dead. Then we find her first. How? She's been running from men like Gabriel her entire adult life. She knows how to disappear. Torres looked at the evidence board, at the pattern of marriages and disappearances. Every time she ran before, she became someone new. But this time she left you that note. She left breadcrumbs, the notebooks, the lockbox, the truth about the affair. Why would she do that unless she wanted to be found? Or unless she was saying goodbye properly, Kane said. Giving me the truth she never gave the others. Maybe, but there's another possibility. Torres turned to face him. What if this time she's not running to become someone new? What if she's running back to who she really was? Kane stared at her. You think she went back to Chicago? I think if Cherie Zampella is tired of running, tired of being other people, maybe she decided to face her past instead of running from it. And there's only one place she can do that. Her mother, Lorraine. It's a long shot, but it's the only lead we have. Kane grabbed his jacket. Then let's go to Chicago. Torres nodded. I'll book flights. But Kane, if we're right, if Cherie did go back, Gabriel might have figured that out too. We might not be the only ones looking for her there. Then we'd better get there first. As they left the conference room, Kane took one last look at the evidence board. 3 women's faces, 3 husbands who'd been left behind, 3 lives built on lies. But underneath all the deception, underneath all the false identities and manufactured personalities, there had been one truth. A 16-year-old girl who'd witnessed a murder and spent her entire life paying for telling the truth. Kane just hoped he could find that girl before her past finally caught up with her. Chapter 8. The Woman from Chicago. The truth about Cherie Zampella wasn't in police reports or marriage records. It was in a sealed juvenile file that Detective Torres shouldn't have been able to access. Torres had contacts, a former partner now working in Chicago PD, a prosecutor who owed her a favor. Between phone calls and carefully worded requests, she got access to files that had been sealed for decades. They were on a flight to Chicago when Torres pulled up the documents on her laptop. Kane sat beside her, exhausted but unable to sleep. Outside the window, clouds passed like ghosts. "You need to see this," Torres said quietly. Kane looked at the screen. It was a court transcript from 29 years ago. The case file read, "People vs. Marcus Zampella." The charge was first-degree murder. "This is the trial where Cherie testified," Torres explained. "She was 16, the only witness to Vincent Moretti's death." Kane read through the transcript, the prosecutor's questions, the defense attorney's cross-examination, and Cherie's answers preserved forever in courtroom stenography. Prosecutor: "Cherie, can you tell the court what you saw on the night of March 4th? Cherie Zampella: "I came home from a friend's house around 9 o'clock. I heard voices in the kitchen, loud voices. My father and Uncle Vincent." Prosecutor: "Uncle Vincent was Vincent Moretti?" Cherie Zampella: "Yes, he wasn't really my uncle, but that's what we called him. He and my father worked together." Prosecutor: "What were they arguing about?" Cherie Zampella: "Money. Uncle Vincent said my father stole from him. My father said Uncle Vincent was lying. They were both yelling. I stayed in the hallway because I was scared." The testimony continued. Cherie described hearing a gunshot, running into the kitchen, seeing Vincent Moretti on the floor, blood pooling around him, her father standing over the body with a gun. Prosecutor: "What did your father say when he saw you?" Cherie Zampella: "He said it was an accident, that Uncle Vincent attacked him and he was defending himself. He told me we'd go to the police together and explain what happened." Prosecutor: "But that's not what happened." Cherie Zampella: "No, he made me help him clean up the blood. Then he took Uncle Vincent's body somewhere. I don't know where. When he came back, he said we'd never talk about this again, that if I told anyone, our whole family would be destroyed." Kane felt sick reading it. A 16-year-old girl, terrified, being made complicit in covering up a murder by her own father. "Keep reading," Torres said. The defense attorney's cross-examination was brutal. He accused Cherie of lying to protect herself, suggested she'd been the one to shoot Vincent Moretti and was blaming her father, called her emotional, unstable, attention-seeking. But Cherie's testimony never wavered. Even under intense questioning, she maintained the same story. Her father had shot Vincent Moretti. She'd witnessed it. She'd been forced to help cover it up. The jury convicted Marcus Zampella, life in prison, no possibility of parole. After the trial, the Moretti family made threats, Torres said, pulling up another document. Death threats against the entire Zampella family. The FBI offered witness protection to Lorraine and Anthony. But look at this. She showed Kane a report filed by an FBI agent. Cherie Zampella, age 16, declined witness protection. Stated she would handle herself. Last known location, Chicago. Status, whereabouts unknown. She refused protection at 16, Kane said. She ran instead, created her own protection by disappearing. Torres closed the laptop. I talked to the FBI agent who handled the case. He's retired now, but he remembered Cherie. Said she was the most composed 16-year-old he'd ever met, like she'd already decided her path before the trial even ended. She knew she'd spent her life running. She chose to run. That's different. She could have taken protection, let the government relocate her and her family. Instead, She disappeared on her own terms. Kane stared out the window. Because she didn't trust anyone to keep her safe. Not the FBI, not witness protection, only herself. Can you blame her? Her own father put her in that position, made her witness a murder, and then made her complicit in covering it up. When she finally did the right thing and testified, her family fell apart. Anthony died looking for her. Her father died in prison. Her mother spent decades alone. And the Moretti family spent decades looking for revenge. Torres nodded. Gabriel wasn't lying. The Morettis take their debt seriously. But here's what I don't understand. Why now? Why wait 25 years to come after her? Gabriel was in prison. He said his brothers and father were looking before, but maybe they didn't have the resources or connections to find her. Until Gabriel got out and decided to finish it. The plane began its descent into Chicago. Kane watched the city appear below, sprawling and vast. Somewhere down there, possibly, was the woman he'd spent 23 years married to without ever really knowing. They landed, rented a car, and drove straight to Lorraine Zampella's address. She lived in a small house on the south side, the kind of neighborhood where people kept to themselves and homes stayed in families for generations. Lorraine answered on the second knock. Her face showed recognition immediately. "You found something," she said, not a question. "We think Cherie might come here," Torres said. "We think she might try to contact you." Lorraine stepped aside to let them in. The house smelled like coffee and old photographs. Pictures of Anthony covered the walls, frozen forever in his 20s. But there were no pictures of Cherie, as if her daughter had been erased the same way she'd erased herself. "Has she contacted you?" Kane asked. "No, not in 25 years. Lorraine sat down heavily. "After the trial, after she disappeared, I kept hoping. Every phone ring, every knock on the door, I thought maybe it was her, telling me she was safe. But nothing, just silence." "Mrs. Zampella," Torres said gently, "if Cherie does contact you, you need to call us immediately. She's in danger. A man named Gabriel Moretti has been hunting her." "Gabriel?" Lorraine's face paled. "Vincent's son. You know him?" "I knew all of Vincent's sons. They used to come to our house when Cherie was little. Vincent and Marcus were partners back then, friends." Her voice turned bitter. "Before greed and violence destroyed everything." "Gabriel is out of prison and looking for Cherie," Kane said. "He's made threats. If he finds her, he'll kill her, I know." Lorraine stood and walked to the window. "That's why she never came back. Not because she didn't love me or her brother, because she was protecting us. If the Morettis knew where I was, they'd use me to get to her. But if she's running out of options, if Gabriel is closing in, she might risk contacting you," Torres said. "Then I'll tell you if she does. But detective, you have to understand. My daughter has been surviving on her own since she was 16. She doesn't trust easily. If she comes here, if she reaches out, it means she's desperate, and a desperate Cherie is dangerous to herself and everyone around her." Kane's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered immediately. "Kane!" Cherie's voice. After days of silence, hearing her speak his name made his chest tight. "Where are you?" "Somewhere safe. For now." "Cherie, we know everything. About the trial, about Gabriel, about Rachel and Nicole. You don't have to run anymore. We can protect you." She laughed quietly. It was a sad sound. "No one can protect me, Kane. I learned that when I was 16. The only person I can trust to keep me alive is me. Gabriel is here, in Chicago. He's looking for you." "I know. I've been watching him watch everyone else. He went to your house, to Jada's apartment. He's been tracking our movements." She paused. "He's good, but I've had 25 years to practice being invisible. Then why call? Why risk it? Because I owe you the truth. You deserved better than what I gave you. Better than a ghost pretending to be a wife." Kane looked at Torres, who was already trying to trace the call. Lorraine stood frozen, tears streaming down her face at the sound of her daughter's voice. "Cherie, your mother is here. She wants to talk to you." Silence. Then, "I can't. If I talk to her, I'll break, and I can't afford to break right now." "Then let us help you. Turn yourself in. We'll put you in protective custody until we can arrest Gabriel." "And then what?" "Live the rest of my life in witness protection, become someone new again." "I'm tired, Kane, so tired of being other people." "Then stop running. Face this. Let us help you face this." "There's only one way to stop running." Cherie's voice changed, becoming harder. "I have to end this with Gabriel, one way or another. Don't do anything stupid. Tell my mother I'm sorry. Tell her Anthony's death wasn't her fault. Tell her I loved her even when I couldn't show it." Cherie took a shaky breath. "And Kane, tell yourself that some of it was real. The life we built, parts of it were real." "Which parts?" "The parts where I forgot to pretend." The line went dead. Torres swore. "Got the location. Cell tower puts her in the downtown area. But by the time we get there, she'll be gone," Kane finished. "She wanted us to know where she was, but not soon enough to stop her." "Stop her from what?" Lorraine asked. Kane met Torres's eyes. They both understood. "She's going after Gabriel. She's done running." They drove downtown at speeds that made Kane's hands grip the dashboard. Torres coordinated with Chicago PD, putting out alerts for both Cherie and Gabriel. But the city was massive, and finding two people who didn't want to be found was nearly impossible. Kane's phone buzzed. A text from Cherie. "There's a cemetery on the north side, St. Adalbert's. Anthony is buried there. If you don't hear from me by tomorrow morning, that's where I'll be. It's where this ends, one way or another." Torres read the message and immediately changed directions. "St. Adalbert's Cemetery. That's 40 minutes from here." "She's giving us time," Kane said. "She doesn't want us to stop her, but she wants us to find her after." "After what?" Kane didn't answer, but he knew. Cherie was done running. Tonight, she would face Gabriel Moretti, and only one of them would walk away. Chapter 9. The Phone Call. Kane's phone rang at 3 in the morning, and the voice on the other end was the woman he'd been married to for 23 years, but she didn't sound like his wife at all. They'd been staking out St. Adalbert's Cemetery since arriving, Torres coordinating with Chicago PD to set up surveillance. Anthony Zampella's grave was in the northeast corner, a simple headstone with dates that ended too soon. If Cherie was coming here, this is where she'd appear. But hours passed with nothing, just darkness and the shapes of headstones against the night sky. Then Kane's phone lit up. Cherie. "Don't come to the cemetery," she said immediately. Her voice was different, harder, colder, nothing like the soft tone he'd known. "It's not safe." "Where are you?" "Somewhere Gabriel can't reach me. Yet." Kane stepped away from Torres and the other officers. "Cherie, this has to end. You can't keep running." "I'm not running anymore, that's the problem." "Then let us bring you in. Protective custody. We can keep you safe." "No one can keep me safe, Kane. I learned that 25 years ago. The only way to survive is to make sure the threat can't reach you." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm going to do what I should have done decades ago. I'm going to face Gabriel Moretti and end this." Kane's blood went cold. "You're going to kill him?" "I'm going to make sure he can never hurt me or anyone I care about again." "Cherie, don't do this. That's not who you are." She laughed bitterly. "You don't know who I am, Kane. You married a ghost. The real me. The girl who testified against her father, who watched her brother die, who spent 25 years becoming other people. That person is capable of things you can't imagine. I'm learning. I read the trial transcripts. I know what you witnessed, what your father made you do. Then you know I'm already complicit in one murder. What's one more? You didn't kill Vincent Moretti. Your father did. I helped clean up the blood. I helped hide the evidence. I kept silent for weeks before I finally told the truth." Her voice cracked slightly. "I've been running from that night my entire life. From the blood, from the guilt, from the look in my father's eyes when I testified against him. He died in prison thinking I betrayed him. You told the truth. That's not betrayal. Tell that to my brother, tell that to my father, tell that to my mother who spent 25 years alone. Kane heard traffic in the background. Cars. She was somewhere public. Where are you right now? It doesn't matter. What matters is that Gabriel found me tonight. He followed me from the cemetery. We talked. He's with you now? He was. We had a very enlightening conversation about debt and revenge and all the ways families destroy each other. Sherry paused. He told me about his father dying in prison, about the promise he made to make me pay. What did you tell him? I told him I was 16. I told him his father was a murderer who got what he deserved. I told him if he wanted revenge, I was right here. Torres had moved closer, listening. She mouthed, "Keep her talking." "Did he threaten you?" Kane asked. "He said he'd been planning my death for years, that he'd imagined it in detail, how long he'd make it last, how much pain he'd cause, how he'd make sure I understood exactly what I'd taken from his family before he ended me." My God, Sherry. But then something interesting happened. We kept talking, and I realized Gabriel Moretti isn't that different from me. We're both survivors of our father's violence. His father went to prison. Mine did too. His family was destroyed by revenge. Mine was too. We're both orphans of choices we didn't make. That doesn't change what he wants to do to you. No, but it changes what I'm willing to do to stop him. Sherry's voice softened slightly. I asked Gabriel if killing me would bring his father back, if it would undo the pain, if revenge would actually heal anything or just create more damage. What did he say? He said he didn't care about healing. He cared about keeping promises to the dead. Kane closed his eyes. Where is Gabriel now? I don't know. We agreed to meet tomorrow night, one final confrontation. He wants to look me in the eye when he takes his revenge. And you agreed to this? I told him I'd be at Anthony's grave at midnight tomorrow, alone, no police, just the two of us settling a debt that's 25 years overdue. That's suicide. That's certainty. I'm tired of running, Kane. Tired of being afraid. Tired of becoming new people every few years because the old ones are compromised. I want this to end. Torres grabbed Kane's arm and whispered, She's setting a trap. Either for Gabriel or for herself. Kane shook her off. Sherry, listen to me. You don't have to do this alone. Let us be there. Let us protect you. If you're there, Gabriel won't come. He's paranoid. Careful. He'll only show if he thinks I'm alone and vulnerable. Then wear a wire. Let us listen. We'll stay far enough away that he won't know, but close enough to intervene if things go wrong. Silence on the other end. Kane could hear her breathing, considering. And if I say no? She finally asked. Then I'm begging you. Please don't do this. Gabriel is dangerous. He's been planning this for years. You might think you can handle him, but... I watched my father murder a man when I was 16, Kane. I spent 6 months living with that secret before I testified. I've been running from violent men my entire adult life. I know what I'm dealing with. You're not a killer, Sherry. How do you know? You don't actually know me. You said so yourself. You married a ghost. I know you spent 23 years with me. I know you could have left after 5 years like you did with Michael, or 7 years like with James, but you stayed. That has to mean something. It means you were safe. It means I could breathe around you. It means for 23 years I almost forgot who I really was. Her voice broke. But I can't forget anymore. Gabriel found me. The past found me. And now I have to deal with it. In the background, Kane heard a car engine start. She was on the move. If you go to that cemetery tomorrow night, you might not walk away, Kane said desperately. I know. And you're okay with that? I'm okay with it ending, one way or another. Either Gabriel kills me and his debt is paid, or I stop him and I can finally live without looking over my shoulder. There's a third option. Let us arrest him first. We know who he is. We can pick him up tonight. And he'll make bail, or his lawyers will get him out, or someone else in the Moretti family will take his place. This doesn't end with an arrest, Kane. It ends with Gabriel and me settling this face to face. Torres was frantically signaling to Kane, trying to trace the call, but Cherie was too smart. She was moving, probably switching phones, making sure she couldn't be tracked. "I need to go," Cherie said. "I have preparations to make." "Wait, will you at least tell me one thing? Something true?" "What? Did you ever love me? Even a little?" The silence stretched so long Kane thought she'd hung up. Then, "I loved the life we built. I loved the safety you gave me. I loved who I got to be when I was with you. Whether that's the same as loving you, I honestly don't know. I've been other people for so long, I can't tell the difference between performance and reality anymore. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. That's the truth you asked for." She took a breath. "Kane, there's something you need to know. Tomorrow night at the cemetery there are two possible outcomes. Either I end this with Gabriel, or Gabriel ends me. If it's the second one, if I don't make it, I need you to know something." "What?" "Everything I owned, the house, the savings, the investments, it's all in your name, has been for years. You'll be fine financially, and there's a safety deposit box at First National Bank, number 2847. The key is in the shed, behind the paint cans. Inside the box is a letter. Read it, if I don't come back. Cherie. And one more thing. Tell my mother I'm sorry. Sorry I couldn't be the daughter she needed. Sorry Anthony died looking for me. Sorry I let fear turn me into someone unrecognizable. Tell her yourself. Survive tomorrow and tell her yourself. That's the plan. But if the plan fails, make sure she knows." Kane heard voices in the background. Cherie was somewhere public, moving through crowds, smart. Harder for Gabriel to approach her in a crowd. "I have to go," Cherie said. "One more day, Kane. Tomorrow night, this ends." "Don't do this." But the line was already dead. Torres immediately got on her radio, coordinating with her team. "We need eyes on St. Adalbert's Cemetery starting now. 24-hour surveillance. If either Cherie Williamson or Gabriel Moretti shows up, I want to know immediately." Kane sat on the hood of Torres's car, his head in his hands. 23 years of marriage, and it was ending here, in a cemetery. With his wife planning either murder or suicide, he couldn't tell which. "She's going to get herself killed," Kane said. "Maybe. Or maybe she knows exactly what she's doing." Torres sat next to him. "Think about it. She's survived 25 years with the Moretti family hunting her. She's created multiple identities, evaded detection, built entire lives from nothing. She's not careless. She's desperate. That's different from careful." "True. But desperate people can be dangerous in their own right." Kane's phone buzzed. A text from the number Cherie had just called from. "I'm sorry I couldn't be the wife you deserved, but thank you for giving me 23 years where I almost believed I could be." Kane stared at the message. It read like a goodbye. Torres saw his expression. "We'll be there tomorrow night. Full team. If Gabriel shows up, we'll take him down before he can hurt her. And if she doesn't want to be saved, then we save her anyway. That's what people who care about her do." Kane looked at the cemetery, at the rows of headstones barely visible in the darkness. Tomorrow night, his wife would come here to end a story that had started when she was 16 years old, and Kane would be there, ready to make sure the ending wasn't her death. Chapter 10. The Woman Who Finally Stopped Running. Kane found Cherie in the last place he expected, sitting at Anthony's grave, waiting for someone to kill her. The next day moved like slow torture. Torres assembled her team, 6 officers plus herself, all positioned around the cemetery in unmarked vehicles. They had night vision, surveillance equipment, tactical gear. If Gabriel Moretti showed up, they were ready. Kane insisted on being there despite Torres's objections. "She's my wife," he said, and Torres didn't argue further. As midnight approached, Kane watched the cemetery entrance from Torres's car. The streets were empty. Chicago at night felt different than during the day, quieter, more dangerous. Every car that passed could be Gabriel, every shadow could be a threat. At 11:40, a figure appeared at the cemetery gates, slender, moving carefully. Cherie. Visual on the subject, Torres said into her radio. All units hold position. Kane watched through binoculars as Cherie walked through the cemetery. She wore dark clothes, her hair pulled back, and she moved like someone who'd done this before, like someone who knew how to be invisible when she wanted to be. She reached Anthony's grave and sat down on the ground next to the headstone. Her hand touched the engraved name, Anthony Michael Zampella, gone too soon, and Kane saw her shoulders shake. She was crying. "I want to go to her," Kane said. "Not yet. Gabriel might already be here watching. If he sees you, he'll bolt." So Kane waited. Watched his wife mourn the brother she'd lost 25 years ago. Watched her say things to a headstone that he couldn't hear but could imagine. Time crawled. 11:50. 11:55. Midnight. No Gabriel. 12:10. 12:15. Still nothing. "Maybe he's not coming," one of the officers said over the radio. "He'll come," Torres replied. "Men like Gabriel don't break promises about revenge." At 12:20, a second figure entered the cemetery. Male, approximately 6 feet, moving with purpose. He walked straight toward Anthony's grave. No hesitation. Gabriel Moretti had arrived. "All units ready," Torres commanded. "Wait for my signal." Kane watched through the binoculars as Gabriel approached Cherie. She stood to face him. They were 20 feet apart, then 10, then 5. Close enough to talk, close enough to kill. Gabriel said something. Cherie responded. They were too far away for the surveillance equipment to pick up words, but their body language spoke volumes. Gabriel was tense, aggressive. Cherie was calm, almost resigned. Gabriel pulled something from his jacket. A gun. "Move in," Torres ordered. "Now!" Officers emerged from all sides, weapons drawn. "Police, drop the weapon!" But Gabriel didn't drop the gun. Instead, he did something unexpected. He turned the gun around and offered it to Cherie, handle first. "Take it," Gabriel said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You want this to end? Then end it. Shoot me. Kill the last person hunting you. That's what you came here to do, isn't it?" Cherie stared at the gun, but didn't take it. "That's not why I came." "Then why? To apologize? To beg for mercy? To explain why you destroyed my family?" "To tell you the truth." Cherie's voice was steady. "Your father murdered Vincent Moretti in cold blood in front of a 16-year-old girl. That girl spent 6 months terrified, 6 months being told that if she spoke, her whole family would die. When she finally found the courage to testify, she lost everything, her brother, her father, her entire life. My father lost his life too. Your father was a murderer. He deserved what he got." Gabriel's hand tightened on the gun. Officers moved closer, but Torres held up a hand, stopping them. "You know what I think?" Gabriel said. "I think you're tired of running. I think you came here hoping I'd do what you can't do yourself. End it for you. Put you out of your misery. Maybe I did. Or maybe I came here to see if revenge was worth 25 years of your life the way it cost me 25 years of mine. It's not the same, isn't it? You spent years in prison. I spent years in hiding. You lost your father. I lost my whole family. We're both prisoners of choices our fathers made." Cherie took a step toward him. "Shoot me if you want. Take your revenge. But it won't bring your father back. It won't undo the pain. It'll just make you a murderer like him." Gabriel's hand shook. "You don't get to lecture me about murder." "I'm not lecturing. I'm telling you what I've learned. Revenge is a debt that never gets paid. You can kill me tonight, but tomorrow you'll still be angry, still be empty, still be trapped by the past." "Drop the weapon!" Torres shouted again. Gabriel ignored her. His eyes stayed locked on Cherie. "You ruined my life." "No. Your father ruined your life when he chose violence. My father ruined mine when he made me complicit. We're both victims of men who thought murder was the answer. So what do? Forgive and forget. We stop letting dead men control us. We stop running. We stop hunting." Cherie's voice broke. "We choose to live differently than they did." Gabriel stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly, he lowered the gun, dropped it on the ground, raised his hands. I'm done, he said quietly. I spent 25 years waiting for this moment, and now that I'm here, I realize killing you won't fix anything. Officers swarmed in, tackling Gabriel to the ground, cuffing him. He didn't resist, just kept staring at Cherie as they dragged him away. You're free, he called out to her. The debt is paid, not with blood, just with truth. Then he was gone, pushed into a police car, and Cherie stood alone in the cemetery, trembling. Kane ran to her before Torres could stop him. Cherie turned at the sound of his footsteps, and for the first time in days, he saw her face clearly. She looked exhausted, older, but also lighter somehow, as if an invisible weight had been lifted. It's over, she whispered. It's over, Kane confirmed. She collapsed against him, sobbing. 25 years of fear, of running, of being other people, came pouring out in the darkness of a cemetery next to her brother's grave. Kane held her, this woman who'd been Rachel and Nicole and Cherie, and probably other names he'd never know. He held her until the crying stopped and she pulled away, wiping her eyes. I need to see my mother, Cherie said. She's waiting for you. They drove to Lorraine's house in Torres's car. It was almost 2 in the morning, but lights were on inside. Lorraine opened the door before they could knock, and the sound she made when she saw Cherie was something between a sob and a prayer. Baby girl. Mum. They fell into each other's arms. 25 years of silence, of absence, of assumed death dissolved in that embrace. Kane and Torres stepped back, giving them space. Inside the house, over tea that no one drank, Cherie told her mother everything. About David Cross, about Rachel Winters and Nicole Hartley and Cherie Williamson, about Michael and James and Kane, about Gabriel finally finding her, about deciding to stop running. Lorraine listened without interrupting, her hand never letting go of her daughter's. I'm sorry I never called, Cherie said. I thought if the Morettis knew you were alive, they'd use you to get to me. You were protecting me. I was protecting myself. I was always protecting myself. You were surviving. That's different. Lorraine squeezed her hand. And you're here now. That's what matters. As dawn broke, Kane and Cherie sat on Lorraine's porch while Torres coordinated Gabriel's arrest inside. Birds sang. The neighborhood woke up. Life continued, oblivious to the drama of the night before. What happens now? Kane asked. I testify against Gabriel for threatening me. He'll probably get more prison time. Cherie looked at him. And then I figure out who I am when I'm not running. Who do you want to be? I don't know. I've been so many people. Rachel, Nicole, Cherie. I can't remember who I was before I learned to be whoever I needed to be. Maybe you get to choose. Start fresh. Be someone new. But this time, someone real. Cherie smiled sadly. You're giving me permission to become someone else again? I'm giving you permission to become yourself. They sat in silence as the sun rose higher. Finally, Cherie spoke. I can't be your wife anymore, Kane. You know that, right? I know. I lied to you for 23 years. Even if parts of it were real, the foundation was false. You deserve better than that. I do, but I also understand why you did it. You were surviving. That doesn't make it right. No, but it makes it human. Cherie stood, looking out at the street. I'll sign whatever divorce papers you need. You can keep the house, the savings, everything. I don't want anything except a chance to start over. Where will you go? I don't know yet. Maybe I'll stay here for a while. Get to know my mother again. Figure out who Cherie Zampella is when she's not running from something. She turned to him. Thank you, Kane, for 23 years of safety, for never pushing me to be someone I couldn't be, for looking for me even after you learned the truth. Thank you for the parts that were real. I wish I could tell you which parts those were. Maybe all of them were real in their own way. Maybe you were just showing me different versions of yourself. That's generous. That's the truth I'm choosing to believe. They hugged goodbye, not as husband and wife, as two people who'd shared a life built on lies that had somehow produced moments of genuine connection. Kane drove back to his hotel alone. On the seat next to him was the key Sherry had mentioned, the one to the safety deposit box. He'd picked it up from the shed before flying to Chicago. He stopped at First National Bank and retrieved the box. Inside was a single letter, sealed in an envelope with his name on it. He opened it. "Dear Kane, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Either dead or disappeared so completely, you'll never find me. Either way, I want you to know some things I never had the courage to say to your face. You were the best of them. Michael was kind but passive. James was passionate but self-centered. You were steady, patient, content. You never needed me to be anything except present, and that was the greatest gift anyone ever gave me. I stayed with you longer than the others because with you, I almost forgot I was performing. There were mornings I'd wake up and think, this is my real life. Kane is my real husband. Cherie Williamson is who I really am. Then I'd remember the truth and the weight of all the lies would come crushing back. You asked me once if I ever loved you. The honest answer is I don't know. I've played so many roles for so long that I can't separate performance from reality, but I know I cared about you. I know I felt safe with you. I know that when I thought about leaving, it hurt in a way it never hurt with the others. Maybe that's not love. Maybe it's just comfort or gratitude or the closest thing to love someone like me can feel. But it was real. Whatever it was real. I'm sorry I couldn't be the wife you deserved. You deserved someone whole, someone honest, someone who could give you all of themselves instead of just the parts that felt safe to share. I hope you find that person someday. Someone who looks at you the way you looked at me, with complete trust and acceptance. Someone who can return that gift with truth instead of lies. And I hope you remember me kindly. Not as the ghost who tricked you, but as a woman who was trying her best to survive in a world that never felt safe. Thank you for 23 years of breathing room. Thank you for never asking questions I couldn't answer. Thank you for being exactly who you were, because who you were gave me space to almost be who I really was. I'm sorry for everything. With whatever love I'm capable of, Cherie. Kane read the letter 3 times. Then he folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. He thought about burning it, about destroying this final piece of Cherie from his life, but instead he put it in his jacket pocket. Some goodbyes deserve to be kept. 5 years later, Kane stood in line at a coffee shop in Portland, exhausted from a business trip and desperate for caffeine. The barista called out orders, and Kane scrolled through his phone, barely paying attention. Then he heard a laugh. Familiar. Impossible. He looked up. Behind the counter, making drinks, was a woman with dark hair pulled into a messy bun. She was laughing at something a co-worker said, her face bright and unguarded. She looked different, lighter, younger, more present. But Kane would know those eyes anywhere. Cherie saw him the same moment he saw her. Her smile froze. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Cherie walked over to take his order, and her voice when she spoke was soft and genuine in a way it never had been during their marriage. "Hi, Kane." "Hi, Cherie. It's Elena now, actually. Elena Zampella, my middle name. I decided to try being myself for once." "How's that going?" "It's terrifying, but good." She smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. "I've been in therapy, figuring out who I am when I'm not running. Turns out I like making coffee and living in small apartments and having friends who actually know me." "I'm glad. You look good, happy." "I am, mostly. Dating someone new." "She's honest to a fault." "I appreciate that now. You deserve that." They stood looking at each other, 2 people who'd shared a life and lost it. "I'm sorry," Elena said, "for everything. I know, I read your letter. Did it help?" "It helped me understand. Understanding isn't the same as forgiveness, but it's something. That's more than I deserve." Kane's coffee was ready. He picked it up, and for a moment he considered walking away without another word, leaving this woman, Eleanor, to her new life while he continued building his own. But instead he said, "I hope you find peace, Eleanor. Real peace. The kind you don't have to run from. I hope you find truth. Real truth. The kind you can trust." They didn't hug. didn't shake hands, just nodded at each other with the understanding of two people who'd survived something terrible together and somehow made it to the other side. Kane walked out of the coffee shop and didn't look back. Behind him, Elena Zampella, the woman who'd been Sherry Williamson and Nicole Hartley and Rachel Winters, watched him go. Then she turned back to her co-workers, back to her small, honest life, and for the first time in 25 years, she didn't feel the urge to run. Some people are meant to be loved from a distance. Elena had taught Kane that love isn't always about staying. Sometimes it's about letting someone go so completely that they finally find the peace they've been running toward their entire life. And in a coffee shop in Portland, on an ordinary Tuesday morning, two ghosts finally became real enough to say goodbye. The end.